dug deep. You're Ken Kell. You're the hockey guy. I go, I don't know anything about this guy.
This is The Conversation Line, presented by Fieger Law.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Conversation Line, brought to you by Fieger Law. I'm Daniella Bruce, alongside the Red Wings radio play-by-play announcer, Ken Kell. And joining us today, Red Wings Assistant General Manager and General Manager of the Grand Rapids Griffins, Shawn Horcoff. Shawn, it's always great to catch up with you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So today, we're going to talk a lot about you, which I hope you were prepared for that. So we're going to go all the way back and learn a lot about Shawn Horcoff today.
You're sweating.
I wasn't prepared for that. How far back are we going?
We're going all the way back, like growing up in Trail, British Columbia.
Okay.
Tell us about that. It's just over the border, Washington, right?
Yeah, it is. I grew up in Castlegar, actually.
Oh, okay.
I played junior, and everyone always says that, so I need to
correct
make that
us.
very
Yes.
clear. Yeah, I grew up in Castlegar. It's about 30 minutes from there, but I had family in Trail. I played junior hockey in Trail, and I was born in Trail. So that's kind of where that comes from. But beautiful area. Yeah, it's about 30 minutes on the border. I always say straight north from Spokane, Washington, right in the mountains. Not a very populated area, but very rich in hockey history and tradition. Lots of NHL players have come from there. Travis Green, Ray Ferrero. The junior hockey is good in that area. So I don't get back as much as I would like to. It's actually not that easy to get to tell you the truth, from out here. But obviously, really enjoyed growing up there.
Shawn, at what age did you really get the hockey bug instilled inside of you?
It's a good question. I probably, really young. I mean, that was still back it was a lot colder back then, so all the outdoor rinks and playing. I was probably, 4 or 5 years old, like any other Canadian kid playing. But, so I'd say probably about that age.
Do you still have family out that way?
I do, yeah. My parents are still there. I have some aunts and some other relatives, so, yeah.
It's interesting that, you got started at an early age, and you mentioned it was cold when you were growing up. I mean, did you do the thing on the pond or build an ice skating rink in your backyard?
Yeah, we didn't have it too much at my place, which is great. I grew up on a farm, so we had tons of space to do it, but didn't really have that many on but I had a lot of friends that had them. And to tell you the truth, there was ice available right beside my house, really not that far. There was an old rink, but right connected to the old rink was a mini rink that you could kind of rent and very cheap kind of back in those days, and we would do that a lot. We would just kind of rent that ice all the time. My dad played men's league hockey and was always around the rinks from an early age. We'd always get my friends and rent and just kind of go play out there quite often. So that was a lot easier and better ice than making a rink in your backyard.
So hockey, obviously always a big part of your life. You made the decision to play college hockey at Michigan State, which is one of my favorite things about Shawn. What went into that decision?
To tell you the truth is, I grew up aging myself a little pre-social media and pre-cell phone age. So to tell you, I didn't know too much about college hockey. Being up in a small town in Canada, I didn't travel that much. Minor hockey in Canada, you kind of just drove around and played teams in your area, and we went to the odd tournament. So I didn't know a lot about college hockey until I kind of got older. I played 3 years at Tier 2, which is, junior A hockey in Canada. And that's really at that time was when it started to become aware, I could get a scholarship. USA Hockey was, actually Paul Currie at the time was when I was younger, was playing in Maine and dominating, and kind of made a name. So people from that area, because he had played in BC, sure knew what he was doing at the University of Maine at that time. And so it started to become an option. I got drafted into junior. And then that was just kind of, it came to a time where I had to make a decision. And really was kind of my dad played college hockey in Canada. I was a really kind of a smaller, underdeveloped kid, and took a little longer to get going. I was really skinny, and he said, well, let's just play another year at Tier 2 here, and let's see what the interest is from some of these instead of going to major junior. And let's just see what some of the interest is. And as I started to play that year, the university started to call, and we took a few trips, a few fly downs. At that time, you were allowed 48 hours on campus. So I took a few fly downs, and once I got to Michigan State, at that time, Ron Mason was the head coach there. Very successful program. They at that point had put the most players into the NHL in college hockey, and I flew in and stepped on campus, and it took all of 10, 15 minutes, and I just knew this is where I wanted to go.
What sold you on Michigan State? Because it seems like every time someone steps foot on the campus, it's like,
Yeah.
man, I want to play here.
I don't know. I think it was just everything. At first it would be Coach Mason. It was just right off the bat. Right, I flew into DTW in Detroit here. We kind of drove up there and just kind of talked. It was very comfort. It was an hour trip went by very quickly, and then we went right to his office. Just kind of sat down. He described me as a player, described what I had to work on, and asked me what my goals were, which was to play in the NHL, and he just laid this plan out for me. And then after that, he just went to the tradition of Michigan State hockey and the national championships and the lineage of NHL or players that have played there that have gone on to play in the NHL, the current players that were there at that time, and it was just like, this is where I need to be. And like I said, I left that meeting before I had a whole another day and a half left, knowing that this is where I was going to play hockey, college hockey.
College hockey is such a unique experience. It's a unique atmosphere for fans. What were some of your most enjoyable memories of your time at Michigan State?
Winning. We did
Yeah.
a lot of winning. We never won a national championship, which is really unfortunate, but we sure had some great teams. So that would do it. And on top of that, we were sold out every night. At the time, I think I stepped into, I can't remember if it was when I was there or right before I got there, but there was a record for the most sellouts in college hockey. I think there's 8,000 students or fans at the time. We had a massive student section, which was always kind of great. And just Big Ten hockey at the time, that's kind of morphed into, or sorry, not Big Ten, it was CCHA at the time, which has
yes.
morphed into Big Ten. It was just a very competitive conference. And you really looked forward to, the home and home, or I shouldn't say the home and home, the back-to-back games on the weekends really leads to a lot of compete and
Yeah.
internal competition at times, right? There's always either an opportunity to sweep or get swept. So, I just, like I said, for me, it was perfect. It gave me the time to physically mature. And I took school seriously. I was a good student in high school, and I enjoyed school. Both my parents were teachers, elementary teachers growing up. So it was kind of instilled in me. I just, the opportunity to do kind of both things was appealing.
The rivalries between Michigan and Michigan State. Red had a great program
Yeah.
there, Red Berenson. And did Red recruit you at all?
Yeah, he did. I took a fly down to Michigan right before Michigan State. And really, I enjoyed it there at the time, not knowing anything about Michigan probably at that time was, because Michigan was on ABC, college
Yeah.
football, so you kind of, they were a big deal, growing up. So you knew the school. In terms of hockey at that time, Michigan State was, just as good, if not
Right.
better at that time, or damn close. And yeah, it recruited me. I had a good visit, but they had, going into the year that I kind of visited, they had 720 goal scorers. They were just stacked and loaded, and, it was a team where I kind of thought coming into Michigan State, maybe I'd have a little better opportunity to play, and try to earn more minutes. This is that naivety in me at the time, not realizing how good of the players that they had at Michigan State. It actually took me a long time to earn those minutes and those roles. It took me a few years. We had a lot of really good players at Michigan State. So, but for me, like I said, it was a great school. And I enjoyed my visit, but I really connected a lot more with Coach Mason at that time. So that was why I really laid my decision on primarily.
College hockey, Shawn, is big. You know that.
Yep.
And at the time when you were playing, you had the Great Lakes Invitational, and it always seemed like Michigan was going to play Michigan
Yeah.
State. You have the Michigan State game, usually in February. Those are big games. And for you, did you enjoy playing on a NHL rink?
Yeah, absolutely. That was huge. And the GLI was a big deal for us, and obviously the Michigan State rivalry was huge. Michigan had a good team, and it was always, us against them. It was a huge rivalry for us all 4 years I was there. And the GLI was kind of the epitome. It was a big deal. Got to come down and play in Joe Louis Arena, and 20,000 people. It was always packed. We didn't have, I think there's more games now. They have the dual at the D here. We never really had that. So the GLI was the big, and then the playoffs. Pretty sure the playoffs were here as well back. It was a long time ago. Pretty sure the playoffs were at the when you got to the Final Four, they were here. But yeah, we always enjoyed coming down. That's kind of when this was 97 to 2000. This is when the Wings were they were starting to win cups.
Right.
And it was a big Detroit hockey town was really going. So there was a real love for hockey, and it was unreal because you came down and literally one side was green and the other side was blue, and the bands were playing, and it was just incredible. Like any hockey player, you know, in Canada that can experience that kind of atmosphere when you come to, it's really hard to pass up college hockey.
It's so much fun. I'm glad we do the dual and the D
Yeah,
here
it's
too.
great.
It's really cool to have those two teams in, especially for people that you don't always get to go to a game at Munn or Yost. It's smaller, a little harder to get a ticket, harder to get there. So I love
Which
that
are
they do it
both
here.
great places.
Yeah,
you know,
amazing
to play.
places.
Both arenas are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about, and both teams know it. You know, it's a
Yeah.
huge rivalry game, and obviously there's a lot on the line, right?
Yeah. So let's get to you getting drafted. 1998, you're drafted by the Edmonton Oilers. And like most players, it takes a little bit for you to solidify yourself as an NHLer, right? So when you're drafted to when you finally become a mainstay on the Oilers, what was that time period like for you, kind of playing in the AHL a little bit, getting some NHL time?
I was drafted after my sophomore year, so I actually stayed two full years at Michigan State, which helped me. You know, I had an option to probably leave. The best option would have been after my junior year. And just got some really good advice from my agent that was like, listen, there's no rush to go to professional hockey. The American League actually, I still use the advice today, you know, having to deal with some of these players now, it's a very good league. It's a hard league. I think everybody thinks they're just going to come in and dominate, and it's rarely the case. And he said, you're in a good spot here. At the time, Mike York had been a teammate of mine for 3 years before that. He was, you know, an outstanding player, one of the best college players, and he had left, and it was kind of going to be a good opportunity for me just to play a lot of minutes and kind of lead the way. And so decided to stay, and it was just a really good decision to do that. Had a good year, and then you know, obviously signed pro that summer. Trained, had a really good camp that next year. Got sent down, you know, in training camp. Right at the end, I was one of the last cuts, and then got off to a really good start. And I had Claude Julien as a head coach in Hamilton, and he was outstanding to me with opportunity and playing time, and just really kind of thrust me into all these different situations, and was able to have some success early. And then Mike Greer blew his shoulder out, had season-ending surgery, just got lucky, got called up, and that was kind of the break that I needed, and was able to, establish myself. But obviously, having 4 years of college, I was 21 years old and physically mature and ready for that by that point.
Shawn, what's the toughest part about jumping from the AHL into the National Hockey League, in your opinion?
Every single part of it. It's bigger, it's faster. Players are stronger, they're smarter, they're experienced. It's just a whole nother level. And I think too is you have to come in. You're playing with the best players in the world.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that's why it's, I think, really a lot of times you try to be patient in making sure that the player is ready, because the NHL is not a development league. It's a very difficult situation to come in and get the minutes to play, and it's not a development league, right? So we want to make sure that our players are ready when they get there, because, like I said, these players are playing for keeps, and they get paid too on the other side, right?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult, it's the best league in the world for a reason.
So I know you're probably not thinking about this while you're playing, and you had a very long, successful NHL career, over 1,000 games, and you're not thinking about what's next, right?
Yeah.
When did you realize that player development or coaching or something like that was something you wanted to do?
At the very last moment.
Yeah.
They say the players are always the last ones to know, and that was probably very much in my case. I would have been 37 years old. I knew I was at kind of towards the end of my career. I started traveling. I played a long time in Edmonton. Then I had 1 year in Anaheim, 2 years in Dallas. I had a family. So I thought I still wanted to play, but it would have to be kind of the right spot, and hopefully somewhere that they could challenge to win a Stanley Cup. And free agency, that didn't really happen. I had a couple, options, but nothing kind of that was really worth kind of going down that road. And then I got a call from Chris Draper, actually. Just, I was able to train with these guys in the summertime, get to know them. Train with Drapes, obviously really good friends with Danny Cleary as well. Got to know some of the wings. And he just said, hey, is this something that would interest you? And I wasn't even really thinking about it at the time. Said, Yuri Fisher's going to move on and up, and we're looking for this spot. Is this something that would kind of interest you? And I just kind of thought about it. I said, yeah, let me get back to you. And then again, talked to my agent, and he's like, geez, it's Ken Holland, it's Detroit. These player development jobs are kind of hard to come by. You know, there's only one of them on every team. You know, where's your heart at here? Why don't you kind of think about it? And I did. And then we just kind of called Drapes back. He said, why don't you come down and meet with Ken, Ryan Martin, and myself, and we can just talk about, I didn't even know what the role was. It's a player. Didn't know what it entailed. What does that mean?
Right.
You know, what does it mean? And then just started that process that way. And then as the summer kind of rolled on, really the more I heard about it, the more I liked it, you know. I always grew up a Red Wings fan, you know, so the chance to work for a team that I grew up loving was incredible. Didn't have to move my family, spent the summers here. Just seemed like the right fit, and I got really lucky, you know, kind of coming in this position and being around some really good people to learn from.
It's interesting, Shawn, because a lot of players at the end of their career, they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Some want to coach, some want to go into management, some want to be scouts. So did you look at all three? Is that something that you looked at and chose the management side?
Yeah, well, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea, and I think that was the nice thing about player development is you're on both sides. Like you're kind of on, you know, the pro and the amateur side. You know, and the nice thing too is like Kenny right off the bat was like, you know, listen, you're not just development. If you want to be around the rink, if you want to learn, you want to figure out what you want to do, just come down and hang around. And really, that was the best advice I got. Is I knew what my role was. It was responsible for the team's, you know, prospects. Did my job, but then when I was home, I try to be around the team here as much as I can. Drapes was around a lot. Ryan Martin was around. And just kind of sat around and listened. And then obviously I was able to be involved in the amateur meetings, the pro meetings, but not, you know, just listening, right, and seeing how things worked. And then you're, you know, it's like anything else, you get a little more responsibility. You try to do that, and your job kind of grows. And like I said, for me, it was just really being around good people that have had success at this level in management, and you know, got really lucky that way, stepping into that kind of situation.
Well, one of those people that you work under right now, general manager of the Red Wings, Steve Yzerman, who has had a lot of success at that position, what he built in Tampa, what he's building here in Detroit. What have you learned from kind of watching him operate?
Yeah, patience probably. That's really is, you know, Steve is, I got lucky. Like I said, you first start with Ken Holland, Hall of Famer, and then, you know, Kenny moves on, and Steve Yzerman comes in. And you're like, this is, you know, from really managers or bosses to learn from. You can't ask for a better situation. You know, two different guys, obviously, but I think I've been involved on the management side, obviously a lot more under Steve. So I think just with him, Steve, he's just so patient. The experience that he has, he never rushes to any sort of decision. I think he's great in terms of kind of telling me what's expected, and letting me kind of go do it. You know, learn from kind of your mistakes. And but yeah, I think patience is the one thing that he really has going for him, which is very, very impressive, and obviously very hard to do when you're in that kind of level. Because especially in this game, you know, you live and die by. If you start living and dying by every night or every 3 or 5 game, you can drive yourself crazy. So I think the biggest idea is put a plan in place, keep a big picture, and kind of stick to it.
By the way, you competed against Steve Yzerman.
There was that
like?
too.
I played against him in his last game. It was in the playoffs there in Edmonton, and I do remember. You speak about that. You know, they had an unbelievable team. We got really fortunate that year just to be
went to the finals, right?
Yeah, we did that year, but we just an 8th seed that got hot. You know, we had a good goaltender, and just kind of we got really lucky, kind of getting through Detroit, and got a lot of confidence from that. Really able to ride that, but. I do remember playing against Steve, and the Zetterberg team was full of, you know, loaded players, and but I do remember his knee at the time. You know, like there was one instance. I mean, he's playing on one leg, you know, and he just got hit in the boards, and he went down, and just to get up off the ice was a process for him to one leg and the other. I'm like, Jesus.
Take the stick, use the stick.
Yeah, it was a process for him. You could tell he was hurting, but I still think he was a point a game, and you know, obviously he was. Steve Yzerman, so he's still able to find a way to, you know, to produce and be a great player on the ice.
Well, now you are the general manager of the Grand Rapids Griffins, and Red Wings fans are still very excited about a lot of the prospects
Yep.
that are currently playing there, as I'm sure you are too. I'm going to lead it off just asking you about Nate Danielson, because
Yep.
he might be the most exciting name. I think Amadeus Lombardi leads the team in points right now, which is great.
Yeah.
But Nate's that guy that everybody seems to have their eyes on when could we see Nate Danielson. But where are you at with him right now?
Well, we're really happy with Nate. You know, when you're going to see, I don't know. I mean, that's going to be up to Nate, really. I think
Yeah.
he's in a great spot. He's playing a lot. He's playing all situations. You know, I think the consistency, like any other young player, is going to take some time. But the one thing with Nate is you get everything out of him every single night. And the one thing about him, too, is he's such a cerebral and smart player. We rely on him in all situations. On the penalty kill, he's on the power play. He's a quiet leader for us down there. You know, he plays the right way. You know, we view him as a 200-foot player where, you know, he's going to be valuable to the Detroit Red Wings at some point on both sides of the puck. There's lots to like there and to look forward to with Nate. He's playing well.
A lot of people here in Detroit, they're obsessed with goaltenders. They love goaltenders.
Yep.
Talk about Sebastian Cossa. How far has he come since you first saw him?
Miles, you know, I think with Coast, where he first got to us in GR to where he is now, it's been leaps and bounds. And I think for numerous reasons. I think first and foremost, he's matured a lot as a kid. He started to figure out what he himself has to work on. He's put a plan together in place, which isn't just on and off ice. It's nutrition, it's sleep, it's his habits have improved. He's gotten better. You know, you look at where he was last year. He was fantastic for us down there in GR last year, and probably played more games really than we even anticipated, which was great. And then he started that off again this year. You know, he's come out and he's top 10 in save percentage, he's top 10 in goals against. He's been very good for us down there. So that's what we look for. I mean, goaltenders take time. The majority of them do. And we just want to make sure that he continues to get better, and he certainly is doing that.
Well, Shawn, we appreciate your time today. It was great going down memory lane
Yeah.
with you, learning all about Shawn Horcoff today.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Anytime.